fight the people. In order to fight the people until they testify la ilaha illallah. When we look to the invitation to Islam on state level now, how was it done by the Prophet Muhammad? He used to send ambassadors and only give the people three choices. You either embrace Islam, or you pay us a tax, or we will conquer you. None of this issue of you can live by your own laws, and we can live by our own laws, so long as we have our own minority community. So this is where Islam on state level, or even as a Sharia, cannot be isolated to one particular region. It's an ever-expanding state, and that is why people like the American government, and that's why the British government, they cannot afford to remove their troops from Afghanistan, because they know this very well as a fact. They know that if they remove their troops from Afghanistan, and Taliban come into power, next door neighbor is Pakistan, where they've been arming with nuclear weapons. If they come into power there, then that is the end of the West. From there they will go to India, and from there they also understand, the West, that the bond between the Muslims is based upon a belief matter. And it's a matter of belief which goes beyond all boundaries of nationalism, of passport, of borders. Meaning we'll be united with our brothers in places like Somalia, in Palestine. So they know very well that if Islam is established in places like Afghanistan or places like Somalia, those Muslims there, people like Shabab and people like Al-Qaeda, they have on their mind a global vision of a pan-Islamic state, which is not restricted to just those Muslim lands which were once upon a time ruled by the Sharia, but taking it all the way to the borders of Europe, and even conquering all of Europe. That's why even if you read the history, according to even Western writers, they say the Sharia came even from the borders of Hungary and Bulgaria all the way to the Alps of France. Even Poland was at once upon a time under the Sharia for maybe 200-300 years. So you're talking about a huge presence of Islam. Even places like Chechnya was once upon a time ruled by the Sharia, before the Russians and the Christian Crusaders came into play. So you can see there is a clash of civilizations via those two obligations. Dawah one-to-one and dawah to society. That commanding good, forbidding evil has many different phases, has many different styles and means. It could be I expose the law and order ideologically. It could be that I engage in jihad fi sabilillah, like what the mujahideen are doing inside the Muslim lands. They're engaging in the commanding good, forbidding evil, but they're changing the evil by the hand. And this is all based upon a verse, hadith of the Prophet Muhammad. He said, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadihi." Whoever he sees a munkar, let him change it by the hand. فَعِلَّمَ اسْتَطِيبَ اللَّسَانِهِ.
Is doing it more by the tongue.
By the tongue, because of the capability. Because here we live by covenant of security. Otherwise we'll be fighting everybody. You won't be saying you're having a meal. So commanding good, forbidding evil is done by three ways: by the hand, by the tongue, or hate it within the heart. But what we find is Muslims here, because they've been indoctrinated by the West, by the Western media, they've been so secularized and so isolated away from their brothers and sisters abroad, and from the concept of Ummah, they see themselves as somebody British Muslim. They identify themselves as somebody British Muslim, as somebody whose allegiance is first with the government, first with what the society dictates to them via the media and their policies, and they want to live according to them, but at the same time try to play the Islamic card. It doesn't work that way. You're either in the camp of Iman, you're in the camp of belief, or you're in the camp of disbelief. And that's always been the case. And that's why Bush was very correct, where he said every nation now has a choice to make. And look at the irony of the statement. It's like saying freedom exists for you to have any car that you want, so long as that is black. Where's the freedom in that? He said every nation has a choice to make. You are either with us, or you are with them. Either with us, with the Muslims, or either with us, the Americans, or you're with the terrorists. So if somebody was to say now, okay, no, us as a nation state, we're going to side with the terrorists, what does that make you? It makes you an accessory to murder. You become a terrorist as well, meaning you will be bombed next as well. That address was not just to Western nations, that was to the whole entire Muslim world. And everybody, they made their choice. All of the Muslim countries, sadly, they all sided with the West. The Pakistanis, they still got their troops inside places like Afghanistan. Turkey, they were sending in a huge amount of enforcements, a huge amount of their troops in places like Afghanistan to carry out cold-blooded murder. You know, the army which is trained by Turkey are not just people with guns. These are people who have particular knives. They're very well trained in knife fighting, in very strong in hand combat. Sorry. So you can find there is a class of civilizations by those two obligations, and that's what separates the true person, the true Muslim, the true Muwahid, the true person who's subservient to the commandment of Allah and who wants to follow the methodology of the Prophet. If you're going to follow the methodology of the Prophet, you're going to be labeled as an extremist, as a fundamentalist, as a terrorist. Why? Because Islam, it came to terrorize the society, it came to terrorize the thoughts and the ideas of the falsehood. Otherwise, what makes our religion the truth? If Islam is the truth, then it must come into conflict there must be a clash of civilizations and clash of ideologies between Islam and anything which is non-Islam, be it secularism, be it democracy, be it freedom. The two can never coexist, and that's what the British government, they realize that now, and that's why their budget is something like 150 million now just on the prevent scheme. You talk about just terrorism alone, MI6, MI5, GCHQ, their budget goes up to about 650 million pounds a year. In a country which is so up to its eyeballs in debt and who doesn't have enough money to feed, clothe and shelter his own citizens, why is so much money being spent? Why is so much emphasis? Why are Muslims so much under the spotlight? Why are they being polarized so much? Why is it now that they even, within, according to their own reports, they like to classify the entire Muslim community into a pyramid scheme? The pyramid scheme, they classify us only into 3 sections. At the top being those violent extremists, people like us, who want to overthrow the government and establish the Sharia. The second are those people who are sympathetic towards violent extremists. And the third are the remaining. That's why if you look through the budget of their prevent strategy inside this country, preventing violent extremism, who is it targeting? According to them, themselves, not something that we're just making up. They say they are looking at any area, any locality within Britain which has a population of more than 5% of Muslims. Any area, which means basically every city inside this country is a target for the British government to try and reform Islam and try and change Islam from within, because that is exactly what the prevent strategy is all about. In Afghanistan, they do the same thing. They just call it a battle of hearts and minds, winning over tribal leaders. In America, I'm sure they're going to introduce the same sort of thing over there as well, try to have a melting pot, pumping their own preachers with funding to facilitate the American version of Islam, an FBI version of Islam, or an MI5 version of Islam, something which appeases the West and stops resentment towards Western policies and foreign policies. Why did 7/7 take place? Why did 7/7 take place? We're on the anniversary now of 7/7. 7/7 was, according to those bombers themselves, and even according, it doesn't take a mathematician or a genius or a professor to work out, it was due to the foreign policies of the West. The West, they realized that. That is why they had to push the prevent strategy after 7/7, because they realized those foreign policies, they can either be challenged physically via bombs, via guns, or if we change or we reform or we facilitate for Muslims to get involved with the government, they no longer feel the grievance, that their grievances cannot be taken out, or they cannot express those grievances by violent means. Why? Because the government is facilitating for them to channel their anger in a very peaceful means, and is very much more effective. That's why you have organizations such as the Muslim Public Affairs Committee, which are very heavily backed by the government, are very pro-government. And what do they keep telling us? They keep telling us, the Muslim youth, get involved with the system. You can make a difference. Just vote for this person and he'll come into power and he'll change your foreign policy. Democracy, we recognize it as nothing but hypocrisy. It goes directly against the core belief of a Muslim, where he declares La ilaha illallah, he declares sovereignty and supremacy for Allah, that Allah is al-Hakam al-Adl. Democracy, on the other hand, it entails freedom of belief, freedom of ownership, economic freedom, freedom of expression. Those 4 freedoms, that is the premise of democracy. No democracy can exist in any land without those 4 freedoms to exist. Those 4 freedoms are directly in conflict with Islam. Why? Because as a Muslim, I don't have no such thing as freedom of expression. I can't say I want to do whatever I want. Can I say F word? I can't. Can I swear? I can't. Can I buy and sell whatever I want? Can I buy and sell pork or alcohol? I can't. Do I have personal freedom to go and commit fornication? I don't. So, do I have religious freedom? Everybody, even, anybody non-Muslim who's got a little bit of intelligence will tell you what is the ruling in Islam, in the Sharia, for the one who changes his religion. The one who changes his religion, the Prophet Muhammad said, kill him. He's not allowed for us to change our religion. So all of those freedoms, which are the principles of Western democracy, they mean that Muslims cannot coexist with the West, except for one to have authority above the other. And they realize that very well. With their failure of their foreign policies inside Afghanistan and their moral decline within the West as well, Muslims becoming radicalized within the West because of their foreign policies and the moral decline, which us as Muslims, we've grown up here. We tasted everything that this society has. Why is it that this generation of Muslims are spitting in the face of the government and spitting in the face of Western democracy and freedom? Why is it that they're not like their forefathers? We've had a taste of everything that the West has to offer, and we've woken up and we realized our obligations and the revival of Islam, and how instrumental the British and the American have been in orchestrating orchestrating mass campaigns of murder inside Muslim lands. Palestine was given. Palestine was a land which was given away by the British to the Israelis. America then became the surrogate or the adoptive father of it, and Britain was the surrogate mother to it. What about Iraq? How many millions of people being killed over there? What about Afghanistan? How many people being killed, maimed and murdered over there? What about the 5 leading nations which make up the UN? People like France, people like Italy, people like Britain, people like Russia, Germany. All of these countries are core members of the United Nations. They are all instrumental in the axis of evil for all of the crises that we see in the world today. Maybe not just Afghanistan and not just Iraq and not just Palestine, but other countries and further afield, far away from that. Kashmir, Chechnya, Indonesia. How many Muslims being massacred because of that? What's the cause of that? It's because of the ideology of the West, democracy and freedom. So whether we look at it from that angle, or whether we look at it from as a belief matter, where I cannot accept Western democracy, you will see as a Muslim, there is no way that Western democracy and the Sharia can coexist, except without the Sharia to be dominant over that. And that's the nature of the falsehood. The truth and the falsehood cannot coexist with one another. And that's why there's a clash of civilizations, and that's why you find there's a huge uprising inside the Muslim lands, as well as us waking up within the West.
أرسلون